Hi, Dom Famularo here. I am having a great life. If you can imagine, I get the chance to talk to the best musicians and drummers in the world, and I have such a great time doing it. And today, for the Sabian Education Network, which is managed by Joe Bergamini, who makes this happen, who also has his show on Fridays at 2 o'clock, this is so great to have today Fred Dinkins, dear friend, old friend at MI. This is Fred Dinkins. Thank you so much for joining me.
Man, I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be here, Dom.
You know, Fred, we go back a long ways, and the early days. You had mentioned that when you had first, my gosh, we go back to the early 80s.
Yeah. Before I moved to LA, you were doing clinics for drum headquarters, Rob Birnbaum.
In St. Louis, exactly right. The
Uh-huh.
great Rob Birnbaum.
And so you came there, and as I was telling you earlier, you were always the talk of the clinic world because when people went to your clinics, they came back with information that they could go home and practice. And that was the greatest thing. We were talking about from flam to groove that's in this book, right? And so you gave us this handout, which was amazing. You know, and you played Cymbal with it. You did all this stuff with everybody was freaking out. Like, what? You could do that with flams and flam taps? And like, yeah, man, you showed it. So we go back to 83, man.
Well, I got to tell you something, Freddie. Having met you years ago then in St. Louis, before you made the move out to California, what you have done with your playing, what you have done with your educational stuff, what you've done with your teaching, and the book. I want to get to all of this because you really have a wealth of information. Plus, you are really kind of tied back to people like Joe Porcaro and Harvey Mason and all these great legends. So I want everyone to get to know you. I want them to hear your story. So let's start going back. You were from St. Louis. When did you start playing drums?
Oh man, my mom told me I was playing drums from literally almost birth. Uh, my sisters would always tell me that I would get in trouble by taking the pots out of the cabinet, you know, and the wooden spoons, banging on things like that. And back then we had the aluminum trash cans, if you can recall that, right?
I do, yes.
I would take the tops of the aluminum trash can, hammer the handle down, and take a nail and hammer it through so I could have a hole in it, and those became my cymbals. So I stayed in trouble with my dad about the trash cans, you know. And then we had a confectionery store, like a little corner store. Like I see the kids playing buckets now. Well, we used to get the pickles in the buckets, like the big,
Yeah.
and man, I would hit those things, and they have tone. So I would set up a drum set behind the meat counter, and that would be my drum set because my brother bought me a little kit from Sears or something, and of course that was gone Christmas Day. That kit was gone Christmas Day, and so I got a kit, man, finally at a pawn shop, and it was for $75, and we didn't have the money, so my mom would give me $1 or 75 cents, and my brother would take me to that pawn shop, and I would pay on that drum set, man. I would never forget the day I got that drum set, and that changed my life. That was everything, having an actual kit to practice on. So I was like the gospel guy in St. Louis because I couldn't. My dad was a minister, so he wouldn't let me play anything else other than gospel. But I mean, I took advantage of it. I became like the guy in the Midwest that if someone needed a drummer, I got the call. I got a chance to play behind some heavyweights like Albertina Walker. I played with the Williams brothers. I
How old were
recorded.
you when this was happening?
Man, I was still in my teens,
Incredible.
and then I started with a group called the O'Neill Twins when I think I was like 20, 21.
Yeah.
They were huge. They were really big in gospel. So I got a Grammy nomination with them on a record. But the main thing, I toured with them, and we did like Cobo Hall and huge places, man, that I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And I
So
wanted more of it. So I wanted to do better. And at that time, Andre Crouch was the gospel king.
Mm.
And my aspirations were set to play with Andre Crouch. So I wanted to get better. But in St. Louis, I mean, we had great teachers, but no one could get me to that level that was in my mind.
Interesting.
And
Cool.
that was in my heart. So it's amazing, man, that I listened to records, and I don't know what, I think it was Westchester Lady or something like that I heard the drummer, and that happened to be Harvey Mason. It's a Bob James record.
Yeah.
Listening to that record, I don't know what happened to me, but I start reminiscing, like, that's got to be the same drummer that played on this. That's got to be the same drummer that played on that record. And I wanted to be like that drummer because I saw the versatility. So one day I get called to play for a choir out of Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Now, you were still living in St. Louis at the time.
Still in St. Louis. And I'm playing for this choir. We get done, and a lady comes up and she says, I want to talk to the drummer. And I said, okay, that's me. And she says, son, I want to congratulate you. You sound amazing. You remind me of my brother. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. No, no big deal. And I was like, so what does your brother do? She says, oh, he plays for everybody. He does TV. He does film. He does tons of records. And I said, well, what's his name? I bet you I know him. And she says, Harvey Mason. Can you believe that?
That is fate at the highest level.
And I would tell people all the time in St. Louis, all my friends, I'm going to one day meet a great player like Harvey Mason, and he's going to tell me how to get better at what I'm doing.
Incredible.
And his sister promised me that she was going to tell him about me, and she sure did, because Rob knew how I felt about Harvey. He played a trick on me, Dom. He brings Harvey in for a clinic. He doesn't tell me. He tells all my friends, don't let him know. I get a flyer in the mail. Harvey's in town the next day.
Oh my God.
I drop everything, and I get to the clinic, and everybody's running up to me like, yo, man, you know Harvey already? I'm going, no, I don't know Harvey already. They goes, man, he's asking for you. He got out of the van going, who's Fred Dinkins? And I go to his dressing room. I can't talk. I am so freaking flabbergasted. It was so funny. But man, we hit it off, and I just basically asked him to help me out. What happened was I sent him a video of me playing. I'm still in St. Louis. And he gave me pointers. He watched the whole video, man, from top to bottom. He still has that video, by the way. And he tells me if I ever mess with him, he's going to blackmail me. He's going to put it on Facebook. So that starts this whole story of me studying with Harvey over the phone. And one day he says, man, this is not going to work. You got to move to New York, LA, Nashville, someplace where there's some great teachers. And he says, but I'm in LA and I know the guy. And that guy was Joe Porcaro.
Now, hang on one second now, because I want people to understand that, as you tell this story, this is your dedication to playing drums, and you put out to the universe Harvey Mason.
Yeah.
And once you put that out, and I believe in this, this is what The Secret is about, the concept of The Secret. What you put out to the universe has energy, and it's the law of attraction, and it starts to attract those people to you. So let's go back to the early days for a second. So who were you listening to back in the early days as far as music when you were back in St. Louis?
Oh, man. The funny thing was, again, now remember, I'm playing all gospel.
Right.
But I listen to jazz all the time. Art Blakey, Max Roach, Elvin, of course, Philly, then Tony Williams, Jack DeJohnette.
Heavy. Heavy.
Now, as I started to really develop, Alphonse Mouzon, Ndugu Chancellor, Jerry Brown, Alex Acuna, who else? Ricky Lawson.
Wow.
And I would go to church and play like those guys. So there's a guy that did a documentary on the history of gospel drumming. And he found me. I was blown away because he says, no, man, I talked to several drummers. Everybody told me that I had to contact you.
Hey, you started.
You were one of the guys that made some of this stuff happen.
Yeah.
And gospel was going on today by the way that you played. Yeah. And I remember, you know, I try to stay humble, Dom. You know, it's like I remember being at these different churches and the whole front row is full of young drummers, like little kids watching me play. So it's like I wasn't thinking that I was being an innovator or something like that. I was just trying to play what I heard.
Yeah.
I would hear Ricky Lawson play something or Harvey play something slick. And I would go, oh, I could put that in this song. Or I could put that in this song. And I would go to church and play like that. So I got this huge reputation around St. Louis about being this great drummer. And people would come to the church to see me play. Not for the minister, not for the choir. They would stand up when the guests get invited to speak. They would say, well, we're coming to see this drummer play.
Incredible.
And I was just like, wow.
Incredible. Boy, that might be.
And I got accused of this big Kojic Church of God in Christ minister. He was the bishop of playing in clubs every night. I never had played a club in my life. But the way that I played drums at church, he said, this boy is playing in clubs every night. True story.
So I tell you something, that might be your next book. You know, the beginning and the development of gospel drumming. That could be something that could really be pretty powerful.
Where gospel drumming is today, it just blows me away because a lot of stuff that I hear, again, I go back to, you know, listening to Tony or listening to Alphonse Mouzon, you know, play solos that, you know, blew you away, or Jack DeJohnette. It's like, you know, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that even Buddy Rich had serious bass drum technique.
Yeah.
But people don't realize it till you study him and go, man, the story that Dennis Chambers told me when he met Buddy was that Buddy, he said, what do you want to learn from me? Dennis said, I want to learn your bass drum technique. And Buddy said, well, kid, let me tell you a story. He said, I'm playing a show one night, and when we get done, I go straight after my tech and I let him have it. I let him have it for 15 minutes. And the band felt so bad for him, they wanted to take up for him. And they said, Buddy, why are you beating this kid up so bad? Buddy says, let me show you. He ran and got the pedal. There was no strap. The strap broke. He didn't have a backup. And they go, yeah, but you played the whole show perfect. And he goes, yeah, but without a strap. This is what I got from Dennis Chambers. Buddy Rich taught him, take the chain and the spring off the pedal and try to play without the spring.
Absolutely.
That was a technique that I learned for bass drum technique. So a lot of these kids now, their foots are amazing.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I don't know what they do. And the speed, again, it's like I just contribute that to, again, looking at Tony Williams, because that's how I would try to play at church. I would try to have these feels like Tony.
Yeah.
You know, and don't forget Billy Cobham.
I've interviewed Cobb many times, and it's interesting that you mentioned this because these guys, I've got on the Sessions panel on YouTube, I've got several interviews with Cobham, with Indugu, with Jerry Brown, with Harvey Mason, with Alex Acuna. I mean, I got a lot of these guys that I've interviewed in the process, and even Joe Porcaro, who we'll talk about soon. And by capturing their story, it's kind of etched in time. I wish I would have got Richie Lawson. I wish I would. We played together in Mexico shortly before he passed away when he got sick, and he just always sounded so deep and in the pocket, and just great. So these guys that you're listening to, that you're saying from, who have influenced you, you really did the homework. You did the research to find out who these people were, but yet you applied it to gospel music in the church.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Because I couldn't play, like I said, my dad would not allow me to play anything outside of gospel.
Right.
He threatened to take my drums, and I believed that he would do it. So I was like, nope, I'm not letting him take my drums.
So what made you move out to LA?
Like I said, studying with Harvey on the phone, he was like, Fred, you need to work on your technique. You need to get your technique together. Yeah. And my funniest thing was, I said, I know my rudiments, and he started laughing. He says, it's not the rudiments that I'm speaking of when I say technique.
Yeah.
He says, you're trying to play things that you don't know how to get from point A to point B. And this was the analogy that he gave me. I'll never forget. He says, the big doors at the department store, the revolving doors. He says, that's you. You go in and you come right back out. And then you go in and you come right back out. That's because you don't know how to get from point A to point B technically.
Very interesting.
So he says, I have the guy for you. I trust only this guy to teach my son, and I would recommend this guy highly to you. He said, have you ever heard of Toto? I said, of course, Jeff Porcaro. He says, well, I'm talking about his dad, Joe Porcaro. And at that time, MI was called PIT.
Right.
Percussive Institute of Technology.
Yeah.
He says, okay, if you're serious, Fred, you will go and find a modern drummer, contact that school, and apply. And I says, okay, I'm going to do that. So I had recently got married. I talked over with my wife. We had a house that we were about to buy. We canceled that out, and I moved back in with my mom, and we saved money for me to go to MI.
Smart. Wow.
And I went there, and Joe Porcaro, the first day, says, I know all about you. Harvey told me everything about you. Your dad is a preacher. He wouldn't let you play anything but gospel. So I have it all up here. Now, I tell you one thing. If you're going to study with me, you're going to be serious about it. And I was like, yes, sir. Yeah. And that was the beginning of my relationship with the great Joe Porcaro.
Boy, who was an amazing man at so many levels. First of all, the children he raised at the highest musical level is incredible in what he did. But Joe's career, for those that don't know, and I always say, go to the Sessions panel and watch my interview with Joe Porcaro. Joe played on hundreds upon hundreds of movie scores.
Yes.
Television shows, albums, recordings. I mean, he did an amazing amount of work, and he worked almost up to the end. He was doing a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah. Literally, he was he could still do movies if he wanted to.
Yeah.
They would welcome him in. He just decided, you know what, I'm gonna call it. Yeah. But then he was still teaching.
Yeah.
He was still teaching at Lama.
Yeah, he was still there.
He was still doing the jazz class.
With Ralph Humphrey, the Los Angeles College of Music.
Yeah.
Still doing it with Ralph Humphrey, which was phenomenal. And what's amazing about it is that you had the chance to sit down with Joe, and in those early days, and PIT, like you said, was really a focused school. They had incredible educators there at that time. But what's interesting is, which I give them credit, now as it's called MI, as you continue at that school, you are leading the path of these great legendary drummers that have come before you. This is a serious responsibility.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is like that legacy is something so great
Mm.
that I mean the way that Joe took me under his wing, it would be really irresponsible of me if I did not
Yeah. Yeah.
carry that legacy on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, of learning how to care for students, Dom. That's the biggest thing. It's not, it's like a job is a job.
Yeah.
But man, Joe showed me another side to the drumming world of that I never saw. I never got that, until it's like, man, these guys really care for each other.
Yeah.
They really, like you and I talk, like all the guys would in Boston and New York, and they would just go sit at each other's house and share information. That's been the drum world for forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Joe showed me how to go about, uh first of all, learning how to like get my stuff together in a different fashion that I never knew, that I was just blown away. And then on top of that, learning how to teach. I taught a little bit in St. Louis, but coming to LA and studying under Joe and Ralph was like, oh my, this is something different here.
Yeah. But it's kind of interesting, Fred, because first of all, we've got some people that are joining us here that are from all around the world. So you're attracting people all around the world. Simon Bajaring, who's from upstate New York, who's originally from Denmark. We've got incredible. Marina is a phenomenal drummer. She is in Cyprus. I'm able to see her once a week in this class that we have. Her hands are looking great. She's such a wonderful personality. She's joined us. Claude Hoffman from Belgium. Artemy Kaur is from Moscow.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Polina is a phenomenal young female drummer. She is from Samara, Russia. She's an excellent, excellent player. Diego Sanchez, Jorge Sanchez, who I know is from Spain. Arthur is from Ufa, Russia. He's joining us right now. We've got people from my gosh, we've got incredible people from everywhere. This is so great when I think about the global. John Gill joined us. Here's a question here. Let's go to this one because you were just talking about it. Fred, would you please share us some things that Joe Porcaro shared with you from Anthony? Anthony, thank you so much. Share some of that, Fred, if you would.
Well, number one, when I graduated, I started teaching summer session, and Joe would say, at some point you're gonna think about teaching at PIT, but you got to be ready.
Yeah.
So I would go up to the school on Joe's lunch. We would take an empty room, and I would be at the blackboard, and he would make me go over a subject, and he would ask some of the craziest questions. and the one thing he told me is like, I see you getting an attitude because I'm asking these questions that you think are bad questions. He says there's no such thing as a bad question from a student.
Yeah.
You never take a student and make them feel bad because they ask you a question. He says, I would fire you if that ever happened. So he taught me the patience of teaching.
Nice.
So that's one big thing that I could tell anyone. If you want to learn how to teach, you have to value patience. You have to love it. You have to want to be able to go to that extra mile to get that person to learn what it is you're trying to teach that they don't understand. That's your job as the teacher. That's what Joe taught me, to get that point across. If it doesn't happen this way, you got to come from an angle. You got to come from another way. You got to come from another way.
Absolutely. Boy, it's Simon, good comment. So what was it like? So how long did you study with Joe?
Oh, up to his death.
Great answer.
I mean, Joe, again, our relationship literally was like father and son. Mm-hmm. I can't put it any other way.
Wow.
I mean, his wife calls me her son from another marriage, which she was never married before. But I was like the adopted son to Joe and his wife.
How beautiful.
And as I told you, Joe in his last days, we had a conversation about this book that he's writing.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm not going to be able to finish the book. That's my one regret. But he said to me, guess what? I said, what? He says, Fred Dinkins can finish this book for me.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So his wife talked to me after it's all over, and she says the first thing, one of his last things, Fred, that he said was that you have to finish this book. So that's where I'm at.
Wow.
So that's how close Joe and I were. Now, it's funny. I was telling a student yesterday, we were talking about hi-hat work. I used to go out with Joe Porcaro all the time to gigs, and Jeff would sit me right at the floor tom. And he would be playing, but talking to me while he's playing, telling me what he's doing and why he's doing it to help my groove out. Now, is that crazy or not?
Listen, that's what everyone needs to hear. The fact that you made the move from St. Louis, listen, and you were married at the time, right?
Yeah.
So you saved some money up, you made the move out to LA, you pursued your dream, and you had the courage to really make the move work for you. You were determined to not only play with different bands, but to teach and to meet with the greatest minds in the percussion industry to be influenced by. This is huge.
Yes. And another guy outside of Ralph and Joe was Efren Toro. Oh my goodness.
What an unsung hero. Efren is a brilliant mind. He really is a brilliant mind.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That guy turned my life, my head around. And that was like while we were still in school. We had what we call open counseling, and sometimes people wouldn't show up, and I would go in there, and it's one-on-one. So it's like a private lesson with the Efren Toro.
Beautiful.
And this guy studied with Alan Dawson.
Yeah.
So, but his mind, it's unbelievable. We'll take forever talking about one idea from Efren's mind, man.
Yeah. Oh, he's got several books out. One of them is 3-2 or not 3-2.
Exactly.
He's got so many great stuff out. Efren's a brilliant man. But you had the chance to really sit down at that time, about what year was that?
I went to MI in 85.
So 85. So we had met in St. Louis in 83 around that time.
Yep.
You make the move out to LA, and you're hooking up with some of the most powerful minds in the drumming industry. And here you are that young, hitting it with these guys. But that was you really made it happen. You made it happen. This wasn't about luck. This was about sheer determination.
Yeah. And you got to have determination if you want to pursue anything in life.
Yeah.
I don't care what it doesn't just have to be drums.
Yeah.
And one thing I talk about all the time, outside of determination, I'm writing another book called the practice room. What a musician's guide to the practice room.
Nice.
That's the title of the book. Matter of fact, it was called The Practice Room, but Joe Porcaro go, no, it needs to be The Musician's Guide to the Practice Room. This is too deep. That's Joe Porcaro saying, no, you listen to me. And I'm going, yes, sir. I changed the name right now. So anyway, I talk about me being a kid watching sports. I'm a avid sports fan. And the one thing about every athlete that's great, they have it was a golfer, Chichi Rodriguez. He talked about the 3 Ds: determination, dedication, and the hardest thing in life for everybody to learn, you, me, everybody, discipline.
Absolutely. That's my favorite word. Yeah.
To sit down and do this thing the way that someone told you to do it for as long as you could possibly do it without anybody pushing you and telling you do it now. Discipline is the hardest thing.
Absolutely. And that's discipline is basically self-control. So
Yes.
that's exactly the hard thing to put the time into it and make it happen. Yes.
Yes.
Boy, that's fantastic. It's kind of interesting. So this book, The Musician's Guide to the Practice Room, you're working on that now.
Yeah. I'm almost done with it. I just have a couple chapters to finish up, and it's off to the editor, and it'll be out.
Let's talk about from Glenn Pinto. Fred, please give us an insight into your book, It's About Time. Now, I use the book here in my studio, Fred. I just sold the last copy. I've ordered some more books to come in. But what I like about it is that you talk about it's almost like the adjustment of time. There's one thing about playing notes, and then sometimes that adjustment of time, which you need the control for, is then bringing you to playing music.
Right.
Talk about what inspired you to write it and a little bit about the book. Thank you, Glenn, so much.
This goes back to Harvey. Harvey did a clinic in St. Louis where he played against the drum machine, but the drum machine was stopping for 8 bars, and he's soloing, and it comes back in, and he's still with it.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I still get chills. Like, that scared me so bad that I was like, oh my goodness. I asked my wife, I said, do you see what he's doing? No one is getting it. No one is getting this. Yeah. He's playing time so perfect that he could play and then still be with the machine when it comes back in. So when I got to LA, Harvey picks me up. And the first question I asked him was, how did you do that? Did you have a click in your ear? He says, no, that was just time. I said, so what do I do? So I started out with playing. Harvey told me, do 1 bar of time and then 1 bar of space. 2 bars of time, 2 bars of space. I built that up. Now, when I met you, you actually came to MI after that, and I gave you a copy of my first book before it was published.
Absolutely.
It was called Time Test.
Time Test, yeah, exactly right.
And so Time Test was a bar of like a bar time, bar space. But I had all the subdivisions going with that. While you play the space, you play all the different subdivisions. Because studying with Efren told me, Fred, it's not downbeats that people mess up on. It's the upbeats. They don't hear them. The people don't hear this. They don't hear upbeats. And I was like, wow. So I started practicing, going, he's right. Between each bar, there's all kind of subdivisions going along.
Interesting.
And they're upbeats. So I could get all the downbeats. I could get 1 and 2 and. But the E and the or the triplets, it's like when you hear people solo in Afro-Cuban, right? Right? That's the upbeat. They're soloing off the upbeats. That's why it sounds like, what the heck are they playing? So I had to get into that. So as I started to progress with the book, by the way, I have to say I'm glad I got this format, because a lot of copycats start happening from that. I'm teaching students from all over the world, and people are taking my concepts back to all over Europe. And now I'm starting to see books come out with rock solid time, bar time or bar space.
Yeah.
Here in LA, they made a metronome called the Ghost Metronome. What did it do? Played a bar time and it cut out for a measure.
Oh, interesting.
So I end up meeting what's his face from Warner Brothers at the time.
Was it Sandy Feldman?
No. He's gonna kill me too because he really made this whole thing happen. And he told me that he had an opportunity for me to redo the book, but it was too difficult. So I got an editor. They gave me a contract. I got an editor. That editor was Joe Testa.
Oh, Joe's great. Joe's great.
They told me I had to make the book easy enough for a kid or a teacher to teach a little kid how to work. So there goes my brain. And now that's where I came up with Joe and I came up with the fifth limb, that kind of thing. But before that, like I said, it was really just the upbeats and downbeats. Joe Porcaro gave me the count of la to be able to make sure I keep, the duration. La, 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 la. That was Joe Porcaro.
Yeah.
But the part of the book came from me seeing Harvey Mason play a clinic doing 8 bars in and 8 bars out.
Wow.
So I had to come up with all these different exercises, like, the count-offs, for instance. I played a big band, didn't know who I was playing with. All the guys in the band had played with Count Basie and Duke Ellington. The band leader counts me in, Dom. He says, let's go. 1, 2. And I start playing. He says, stop. He says, hey, young man, that's not the tempo. I go, what do you mean that's not the tempo? He said, that's not the tempo I gave you. He says, let's try it again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. He goes, he brings another guy, the original drummer in. He says, Billy, show this cat how to play.
Oh.
He counts it off. 1, 2, and they start playing. The man puts up a metronome in my face. He says, do you see his ride cymbal? I was like, oh my goodness. So the count-offs came from me, like not knowing that when someone else counted me in, I changed tempos, which 99.5% of drummers do.
Absolutely. Very, very big challenge. Good point. Very good point.
So those are some of the things that's in the book, like playing the space, just seeing if you could play the different subdivisions, things like that. That's the big synopsis of this book. A lot of things that's going to help you with your career playing live and in the studio.
Yeah. Listen, the book works. I mean, with the students that I use it with, when I get them, when they're playing and they're starting to get into the groove, and when they think they have ownership of their playing, that's when we go into here. And what this does, it completely makes you reevaluate your sense of perspective of time, how you're adapting to the tempo that was given to you, and just how your body moves within that feel.
Yeah. Because again, here's one thing I teach. Body position is so important. How you sit. When you sit, if anybody watches like The Perfect People, is Dennis Chambers. Dennis is like this. If you move forward when you play, you are playing on top of the beat.
Yeah.
If you move backwards, you're playing behind the beat.
Yeah.
I do this all the time in every class, and it freaks the students out like you would not believe. You think like Houdini came up with something. You hear, oh wow, oh man, that's crazy, and it's like that's the fun. That's the most like enjoyable moment when I'm teaching out of the book. Like that class, when I talk about time movement, and I try to get them to understand how the body position plays an important role where the time is.
Yeah. Boy, that's really fantastic. And it's really amazing that you've developed this level of a career, Fred, that not only are you, Grammy-nominated, I mean, you played and continue to play with some incredible acts. You are as active as anyone can be. With this pandemic now, we've all been challenged.
Yeah.
And you've been teaching now with your setup here. teaching online this way, and you've got an incredible setup that you have there, which is really, really great that you put the time into it to research the computers, the angles, the cameras, the microphones. You did your homework.
Yeah.
And you're not teaching from here, correct? Everything is from here?
Yes, everything's right from here.
Just talk about your setup right now and what you've done, because now with this information that you learned from all these great players, you're now using this to pass this on. And this is why I say for everyone, if you have a chance, make sure you take some lessons with Freddie, because he's going to open your mind. He's going to challenge you, and you're going to kind of make them think differently. And with the setup that you have and the information that you have and the new books that you're working on, this is a real good combination. Just talk about your setup there as far as the different camera angles and how you have this all organized.
Well, I have like basically like really 5 cameras. I think I have like maybe 3 or 4 set up today. But I use the VH1 where I can get different angles. You know, if I'm working on bass drum technique, you can see the foot. You can see from the top. And then
absolutely. Thanks, Joe.
The cool thing is this is the picture in picture.
Yeah.
I actually love playing with this, just like, you know, saying, wow, I can, you know, show like I'm in 2 places at one time.
Right on. So you have the switcher you have is the Roland, right?
Yes, the Roland VH1, and I'm going through an Apollo interface. Mm-hmm. You know, because again, this is my studio where I do records. I actually do recordings out of here. Wow. And I use earthwork mics, you know, all the way around, you know, and like in Remo and Sabian. I've been with Sabian. I have the letter right here, 1988.
Yeah.
The original letter welcoming to Sabian from Roy Edmonds.
Roy Edmonds, boy, what a beautiful person he was.
That's how far I go back with Sabian.
Yeah, wow. That's incredible. So all these different camera angles, and now you have the split screen up here. You're able to really showcase what you're doing clearly to every student.
Yeah, yeah. And that's important. I mean, because, how many students don't ask about bass drum technique? Where you like the position of the foot? Like, what are you doing? How do you do this? How do you do that? And then the angle, you know, like of the hands, if I'm working on hands, so they could see, you know, what I'm doing and how I go about it.
Yeah.
You know, so that's really important to be able to have all that at your disposal.
Well, absolutely. You know, I've always been impressed, Freddie, with your general technique, but your hands are so great. They're so smooth. You've got such great control. I mean, you really put the time into your technique. Again, what Harvey said, you listen to what he said, you put the time into it, and you're still continuing to research and understand it. You're still into it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, taking lessons with you. It's like I never stop. I try not to stop.
Yeah.
You know, because it's an ongoing task.
Well, that's fantastic. That really is fantastic. So talk about Sabian cymbals, 32 years. Talk about your setup, what cymbals you have there and what cymbals you use.
I have a legacy here that I really like because it's the versatility of it. I love my ozone. This is like this ozone goes like I have probably an ozone in every cymbal bag that I own. And this is a new one that I just got, the FRX. I really like it. But my main setup that I've always dealt with Sabian is hand hammered. This is a hand hammered Evolution 13-inch. I love these, the versatility of these. Another HH X Evolution. So I love the hand hammer. This is a hand hammered splash. They for me, it's like they have that warmer tone. And they attack, but then they don't stay in the mix.
Yeah.
That's one thing about the engineers that I work with. They always say, man, your cymbals are great because they never linger so long that we have to do like gate them or anything like that. They're in and they're out. So that's the one thing I love about that.
Wow. Well, that's again the symbols that you have here. So, how did you choose the symbol sizes and the locations? How'd you decide on that?
Very good question. It depends on who I'm playing with and what I'm doing.
Right.
There was at one point, the years of playing with the emotions, I had to switch to smaller cymbals.
Yeah.
I would go with a 17-inch and hit that thing, and one of the singers would say, that cymbal is messing with my intonation. When I sing, it's at the same pitch, so you can't use that cymbal.
Interesting.
And that taught me about picking cymbals out. I also go by pitch. I try to think about, like, tones. Like, if this is high, then that's lower.
Yeah.
Then 3 different pitches.
A great symbol.
3 different pitches that I can choose from. And inside the music, I kind of know what's going on. So the other thing too, like, I think it's so important for drummers to take, like, the other classes at the schools, like ear training, like piano or bass.
Yeah, good.
So that they can get an understanding of what music is all about. And that's the main thing that I learned of studying with Marvin Smitty Smith, is that Max taught him about being a musician, not just a drummer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I didn't know that, but it's like I figured it out, man. Everybody that I like, they all play instruments.
That's right.
Harvey played piano, played piano growing up, playing piano at church.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, Dennis plays guitar and bass. Weckel plays bass like nobody knows how well he plays bass.
Yeah, yeah.
All these cats play something.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow. So that's the other side of music that I got into, was like, oh, I want to know what everybody else is doing so I can communicate properly, because a pattern doesn't communicate.
Yeah.
But music does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And understanding that degree of stepping into the theory of music and the qualities that music can give us. So many drummers are just so focused on just learning about drums, they don't see the bigger picture of the musical journey that they could be on. That's a great point.
Yeah. You have to be inside the music. Even playing time, you got to be inside.
Yeah.
To make the stuff feel right, to make it gel right.
Yeah.
Because you could. I mean, I know people that have perfect time, but the feel is not necessarily the best thing for every song that they play.
Yeah.
Because they're not inside the music. It's a pattern being played.
So what you're saying is that's really where the emotional part comes in, when you can blend with what's happening at that time with those quality musicians with that song that you're playing. You got to be aware of all those variables.
Exactly. And that's why you said the magic word. That's why my book is called that track is called Emotions. Because it's about being in that emotional moment as you play.
Yeah. Well, that's powerful. That really is very, very powerful. So now, with the students that you have, what do you see with the students that you're teaching now? Do you see any kind of are they focusing on time? Are they focusing on technique? Are they focusing on music? What do you see in just the general sense of students?
Well, the students that study with me usually have a little bit of all that what you just brought up. I always focus on the time and their musicality. That's important for me, to give them music to play to, and then give them critiques on what my experience is all about.
Yeah.
And listen to them play something, and then tell them why I think it wouldn't work or why it would work. Because a lot of times I try to tell people, if I hire you and I'm producing a track and I don't want to play drums, I want to hire a different drummer. Well, there's certain things I'm going to be looking for and listening for. And you need to be able to do those things because that's what happens in a studio session.
Absolutely.
With
Absolutely.
a producer, you don't know what you're going to end up playing. It could be the craziest thing, but they're paying you to do that. And at the end of the day, it's you playing it. And you have to make it sound like you, even though they told you to play something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but I have excuse me, quite a few students, man, like this guy, he's autistic, Logan Shepherd is amazing, man. Another guy, Seamus Neal, girl Eva Friedman. You know, you'll probably hear about these, these kids at some point.
Wow.
Ari, it's a lot of guys studying with me that like, man, I'm just blown away. Because I've taught a lot of greats. I'm happy to say, like, I've been blessed to teach a lot of great students, man. And I always saw Anderson .Paak being where he is today.
Wow.
That and that was the one thing that he came back to MI to thank me for, to say, you always believed in me. You always said that I was going to make it.
Wow. But listen, that goes back to your sheer personality and desire to want to see these students grow. You're giving them fantastic direction, great information. You're taking them through practical understanding of what they need to know to be successful. You're laying the groundwork down. This is an incredible path. That's, a huge responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's a big responsibility. So that's what I'm saying. If like yourself, I mean, you've taught a lot of great people, man, and you still laying down the groundwork. I mean, even the sessions, just watching the session series with you on the interview, you learn so much just from the questions that are asked. So it's important, man. Like how we got to keep this whole educational thing going, despite whatever happens, the pandemic and whatever else may come along.
Yeah, yeah. But that's why, you talk about Harvey Mason and Joe Porcaro. Listen, these great legends, and they're legends because of the duration of their careers and just the great thing that they've done and the great things that they continue to do.
Yeah.
And Harvey is still on fire with what he's doing.
Oh, for sure.
And Harvey is articulate. He's classy. He's brilliant. His groove is always incredible. And all the stuff, foreplay on from there, all those days, he constantly is at a level of it's just so high. It's always great. So you can be guaranteed. I have, I think it's in a mason jar, Harvey in a mason jar.
Oh yeah.
That old album. I still listen to that. It's still great music now.
Yes, it is.
It's so these, you've been able to be on the coattails and stand on the shoulders of some pretty serious giants, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and I don't want to forget Steve Ferroni and David Garibaldi.
Oh man, two more great players. So I mean, and Garibaldi, who's still actively playing with Tower Power. Of course, they're off the road right now. Ferroni, who has got a pocket that is so deep when he plays.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, man. I listen to those guys, and I there was a George Duke record with Ricky Lawson on it, and then Average White Band live. And then Harvey with Bob James and Earl Klugh. And I would go to church, man, and just wear people out trying to play those grooves like those guys did.
Yeah.
You're talking about pockets for days.
Oh, but listen, there are guys. Fred was for me at a time, supportive, and pushed me so hard that in every class that I had improvement, and it was always something new. Henry D'Souza, thank you so much.
Henry, listen, hey man, good to see you out there, man.
You've got, look at this here.
Wow, man.
Oh, how great, right?
Oh yeah, Eva. Oh, cool. Eva's on.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some great people that have just really just been influenced by you, Fred, at the highest level. It's really, really amazing. What would you say in closing? What would you say to this next generation? What kind of advice would you give these people that want to go out there and study and learn the craft? What would you tell them?
First of all, I would say start from the beginning. Know the history. Know the history of what you're trying to do, and let that history influence what you're trying to do now. Because you'll find out, like, it's a hard thing, but you'll find out, like, oh man, I didn't actually play this first, but then you learn, now that I know that I can do this and I can do that and I can do this and I can do that because I know that from back there.
Yeah.
So it's so much history. Again, people look at Dennis Chambers. Well, like Tony Williams said, there's a lot of shoulders that we all stand on, man. And if you look back and try and go backwards and just follow all that history, it's a gold mine. It's a gold mine. I mean, look at the stuff we were talking about with the Gladstone and all that. That was you don't understand. That was a gold mine to me.
Yeah.
That was you opening up a freaking like box that I was like, oh my goodness.
It's all traceable. If you go back to, you're talking about Dennis Chambers, then you got to go back and look at Cobham.
Yes.
From Cobham, you got to go back and look at Max Roach. From Max Roach, you got to go back and look at Papa Joe Jones.
That's right.
Papa Joe Jones, you got to go back to Sid Catlin and Chick Webb and these guys. I mean, it really is a lineage that is so deep from the performing end, and you go back to the technique end, as we mentioned, Gladstone, Stoner, Moeller. These guys figured things out 100 years ago, and all we're doing, if we're smart enough, is to follow their path that has been laid down for us.
That's right. That's right. And you end up in greatness, I think.
Boy, that's really fantastic. Well, I'll tell you something, Fred. You really have, offered some incredible insight here. You are still leading the path of not only writing more books as you're coming out, It's About Time as a winner, and now you've got, the Musician's Guide to the Practice Room coming out, and you got to work on the book that Joe Porcaro has entrusted with you to get that happening.
Yes.
So you got a lot of work ahead of you in this next decade coming up, I'll tell you.
Oh, for sure, man. And the thing about it, by the way, I taught Joe's grandson.
Wow.
Who's a great drummer, amazing drummer. Now I'm teaching his granddaughter.
Wow.
Do you know the pressure that was of them taking a lesson back to Joe, saying, this is what Fred is teaching me? When I first started teaching the grandson, he would say, Papa Joe, this is what Fred is giving me. My phone rings. Fred, what is this? I need to make sure I understand this before you give it to my grandson. So I'm going to hear Joe, everything I write in this new book. What the hell is that? Is that right? What are you doing? Is this correct? I'm going to hear Joe say that. So that's this. I got a lot of work ahead of me, man.
Well, that's good that you're doing it because you've committed to it. If there's anyone that's more dedicated and disciplined and has the determination, those 3Ds, man, you own that big time.
I try my best to hold them, man.
Absolutely. But, you've always, Fred, you've always remained humble. You've always remained very, very, your feet are on the ground, and your head's not in the stars, man. You've kept very real to what you're doing, and you've been you've been that steady, slow and steady cause that has moved and changed lives for the better in producing some great musicians and for yourself producing some great art. Pretty powerful.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks so much, Dom, for the opportunity, man, that, even just do this today again.
Well, again, the key thing about this here is, again, the Sabian Education Network allows us to allow all these different teachers and educators to come on by, ask some questions, be focused on an idea. And this is about the replenishing of our spirit, the replenishing of our passion, and the inspiration to move forward, to keep going. That's really what the SEN program does, which you are one of the top leaders of it. So, Freddie, thank you so much on behalf of Sabian Education Network, on behalf of Sabian for all these years. You have done fantastic. And anybody that is out there, track down Fred. Fred, what's your website? Is it freddinkins.com?
FredDinkins.com.
Make sure everyone goes there and check it out. Check what Freddie's doing. Reach out to him. Take some lessons. Move it forward. Freddie, thank you so much. We'll be in touch for sure in the future.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Fred. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.